So my name is Yuko Ishihara. My background is in what is called Phenomenology, and also I work on Japanese philosophy, mostly the Kyoto school tradition. The topic of play has been a special topic for me, and my approach is comparative philosophy, so bringing in different philosophical traditions from different cultural backgrounds to understand the nature and significance of play for mostly human beings. But I've been wanting to extend this idea of play to more generally play in living systems.
So I'm Olaf. I've been visiting here on and off. My background is in machine intelligence, AI kind of stuff, and mostly artificial life these days, which studies the living systems, not life as it is, but life as it could be. And I guess intelligence in systems as they could be. I'm the current president for the Society for Artificial Life, both based in Kyoto, Japan.
The topic of play in itself is not a mainstream topic in philosophy. Philosophers like to talk about serious matters. So it has been marginalized. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus, who said life is, or ion, life is a child at play, moving pieces and games. Understanding life itself to be child playing. Nietzsche, in the Three Metamorphoses, talks about the transformation of the human spirit. The third stage, which is symbolized by a child. He talks about how the highest stage of the human spirit is like a child playing. Not just kind of randomly playing, but creating its own play world, creating its own values, and that's understood to be the highest form of human life. In Zen Buddhism, there's this idea that when you become enlightened, all the activities that you engaged in, including work, including tedious things like washing dishes, all of those activities become playful. And so playfulness, again, is a kind of achievement. It's a higher mental state that we have to aim towards. When one becomes enlightened, then all the activities take on this kind of playful character. There's this other aspect in play, and this is the aspect of distancing. So immersion is the aspect of engaging. Bracketing, we call this bracketing. We use the term from the phenomenological tradition. Edmund Husserl, who's the founder of phenomenology, he took the word epoche, the ancient Greek word epoche, that means suspension of judgment, and he also called it bracketing. What we do when we bracket is we put out of play our belief in the rules that govern our everyday practical lives. Usually, we're just kind of immersed in these rules. We don't really question them. What we do when we bracket those rules is that we are distancing ourselves from those rules, creating a bit of freedom from those rules so that we can have a bit of a different kind of relationship to those rules. Bracketing, importantly, is not the same as negating. You're not going to deny or negate those rules. You're just putting them aside temporarily. Our first proposal that we want to make is that play involves these two aspects, bracketing and immersion. Bracketing is kind of a negative procedure, negative in the sense that you're not doing anything positive. You're kind of taking distance to those beliefs. Immersion is this positive procedure of fully adopting these new set of rules, and you become physically and mentally absorbed in the new virtual world. When we play, we do these two things. The second proposal, in play, it might be these two procedure processes might be implicit, but what if we make them explicit? We want to say that this kind of playfulness as a meta attitude is where you explicitly bracket and explicitly immerse yourself in different rules. So it's an interplay of bracketing and immersion. There are two dangers when we play. One danger is that we get too immersed. We get too involved in the play. This often happens in children, I guess. But they get so absorbed to the point that they forget that this is play. So the play rule becomes their sole rule. You kind of can't get out of it. So you're super immersed, you're super involved. But I think the most detrimental aspect of this is that you no longer become playful. And in order to remain playful, some sort of distancing is necessary. We want to say that, well, bracketing kind of does that for us. When you bracket the rules of the game, what you're doing is that you are spending judgment about those rules. And in doing so, you're no longer ruled by the game. You're kind of relativizing those rules and saying, okay, those rules are the rules of that game, but I'm not going to be ruled by that game. Bracketing ensures that we don't get too attached to the game. There's the other danger that you become too detached. What this allows you to do is that it allows you to kind of have a bit more reflective point of view, perspective. You may be able to provide some sort of reflective insight into the game that you may not have been able to if you were simply immersed in the game. But if you're merely detached, you risk becoming a kind of detached spectator. Getting in the game, becoming immersed as an engaged player is necessary to be truly playful. This playful meta attitude consists of the ability to freely go in and go out of a local virtual world. It's this dynamic interplay of going in and going out. And when this stagnates, the agent either gets stuck in the game and no longer becomes playful, which is the loss of bracketing, or you get out of the game, forget the real fun of playing. The ability to go in and out is what characterizes this playful meta attitude. So this idea that play is characterized by this dynamic movement is something that we find in Gadamer's thought. His magnum opus is from 1960, The Truth and Method. In it, he has this analysis of play, which is quite interesting. He's basically criticizing the notion of play that's been featured in history of philosophy up to then. Kant famously spoke of the free play of faculties of imagination and understanding in aesthetic judgment. Play is something that is happening in the mind. Friedrich Schiller also spoke of this notion of play drive, where we encounter beauty, when we're in the face of a beautiful object. There's this kind of different new drive that's awakened called the play drive, that's different from the sense drive, sensibility and form drive, that balances out our senses and understanding. Gadamer criticizes these previous notions, saying that all these Western philosophers have kind of had a subjective take on play. For them, play has had to do with something in the mind, right? It's something that is happening in here, not so much out there. It's always been talked about in the field of aesthetics, not always, but it's the kind of typical play has been a main topic in aesthetics. And he says, in Truth and Method, I wish to free this concept of the subjective meaning that it has in Kant and Schiller and that dominates the whole of modern aesthetics and philosophy of man. He starts with the way the word play is used metaphorically. And he says, okay, when we look at these metaphorical usages, what it reveals is the original meaning of the word. And from the use that he sees here, the original meaning that he extracts is this to and fro movement. That's not tied to any goal that would bring it to an end. So for him, play is essentially characterized by this movement, back and forth movement. There's no specific goal that is going to bring this movement to an end. So it's not going anywhere specifically, but the nature of play is just in this dynamic movement. In the Truth and Method, he goes on to apply this definition of play, this movement, to our understanding of art and to human understanding in general, the structure of our understanding. So he starts off by saying that, well, what does it mean to understand an artwork? An artwork is not an object to be appreciated by a disinterested kind of subject. Rather, he says the meaning of an artwork takes place in the back and forth interplay of the spectator and the artwork. Just as the players lose themselves in play and playing seriously, the spectator, the audience, must participate and submit themselves to this interpretive process. When we see art, we're not just spectators waiting for the meaning of the artwork to reveal itself to us. That's a very static way of understanding the structure of understanding artworks. Gadamer wants to say, no, when we understand artworks, it's much more dynamic. It's an interpretation process, which is this meaning is revealed to us, and then we attempt to see if this meaning accords with, this is not just artworks. For him, he goes on to talk about how we understand text in general. We see, and also dialogue with other people. We see if our understanding is correct, and then we see what the artwork tells us again, or the other person speaks. We hear, and then we listen, and then we attempt to talk. It's this kind of dynamic movement that takes place in between. What Gadamer really emphasizes is the play's immersive aspect. Understanding involves engaged participation in something larger than ourselves. And he calls it the primacy of play over the consciousness of the player. It's not as if we can rule the game. Understanding is something that's dynamic. It happens in between spectator and the object. His emphasis on engaged participation and immersion has to do with the fact that he's trying to identify the unique method for the human sciences as opposed to the modern sciences. Ricoeur is also a hermeneutic philosopher. He expands on Gadamer's analysis of play. He focuses on writing and reading, especially fiction. When we immerse ourselves in a kind of imaginary world that fiction opens up, what happens is we adopt this new meaning horizon in the imaginary world. And he calls this appropriation. Kern takes note of this other aspect that, well, what enables us to get immersed in this kind of imaginary world is that we kind of leave behind. He calls this distanciation. Appropriation is possible because of the distanciation from our meaning horizons of our everyday world. In doing so, we're also distancing ourselves from our own identity. He calls this a letting go or relinquishment of the subject. It's like kind of taking on and off clothes. Usually we're living in this world. We have a set of clothes on that we're very comfortable with. When we engage in fiction, we're actually taking off these old clothes temporarily. We're not going to burn them. We're going to take them off, put them aside, and then we're going to put on different ones. Distanciation is the taking off, process of taking off. Appropriation is putting new ones on. This emphasis on bracketing is actually widely recognized in the Eastern philosophical traditions and Buddhism specifically. They call it, negation of the ego. This idea of playful samadhi, right, is this kind of ideal state when one becomes enlightened, where all our activities, including work, become playful. And they say this is achieved only by letting go of your ego, letting go of the kind of craving, this ego that is telling you, do this, do that, I want this, I want that. By letting go of that, then you kind of become more open to the things that come. And in doing so, everything kind of becomes playful. It's kind of fun. Everything is fun. It's not to say that they're not taking things seriously. The people who are enlightened in the Zen Buddhist tradition are those people who have this ability to go in and go out, to immerse and then to bracket. It's a kind of freedom. All doing becomes a kind of effortless doing. They're doing it, they're engaged in it, but it's kind of effortless. There's no strong center that's making them do this and that and holding on to specific things, creating a boundary that, in a sense, disallows them to do other things. They're much freer to go into different things. Not only go in, but go out, and go in and go out. The Zen Buddhist state, the higher order state that they're talking about, is the playful meta attitude. I'm going to hand it over to Olaf, I think. Yeah? Yeah.